Welcome to the Find Your Exit podcast, where the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, and growing companies, Michelle Seiler Tucker, is dedicated to helping you find the path to retire rich and move on to your next adventure by exiting your business for the desired dream price you deserve. Get ready to find your exit with your host, Michelle Seiler Tucker.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Find Your Exit. I'm so glad you're joining me. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 different types of buyers. You know, many business owners think, oh, there's one buyer, one type of buyer, but there's not. There's 5 different types. And the first type is the first-time buyer. So the first-time buyer makes up about 95% of all buyers. And first-time buyers are those buyers who are trying to leave corporate America and purchase a business so they can have a better quality of life, financial freedom, be their own boss, and they want to purchase a business. And that's great, and I'm all for that. And I've helped hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of first-time buyers acquire the business of their dreams. The problem with first-time buyers is that you really, really, really have to interview them. You have to interview them on their strengths, their weaknesses, their passions, why they want to own a business in the first place, and the why is huge. And if you can't help them identify the why, then they'll never pull the trigger and buy a business. So when I interview first-time buyers, I ask them everything about what their core competencies are. What are their skill sets? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What have they done for the past decades? What was their passion? What were they excited about when they weren't working in their job? And if money wasn't an issue, what would they do? And then most importantly, I ask my first-time buyers, what is your why? Why do you want to leave your job and buy a business? And you really have to interview first-time buyers to figure out if they're serious and if they're really going to pull the trigger and buy a business. And you have to financially qualify them because a lot of first-time buyers don't really have the money to purchase a business. And they think that they can go out and get a loan, or they can bring in other partners or get venture capital. And it's not easy to do that. Yes, some of them can get a loan. Many of them can't. So you got to financially qualify these first-time buyers. And like I said, they're very slow to pull the trigger. And when I interview my buyers, I really interview them on their why. And I had a lady, I'll give you a story to illustrate this. I had a lady that was in banking for decades. She was about 3 years away from retiring. And she came to me and wanted to buy a restaurant. So I started asking her questions. Why do you want to own a restaurant? Do you have experience in restaurants? Do you have family members that are in restaurants? She said, no, I've been in banking for 30 plus years, and I just thought the restaurant industry was easy. Well, guess what? The restaurant industry is anything but easy. It's one of the most difficult businesses you can possibly be in. So I asked her, why do you want to own a business? And she said, well, my husband contracted Agent Orange, and he is dying, but he's outlived every doctor's prognosis of how long he's going to live. And when he does pass away, I'm going to lose that income, his benefits, etc. Plus, I have a daughter, and I've been working for 30 plus years, and I don't have a legacy to leave behind. I don't have anything for my daughter. So I asked her, how much money do you have to put down on a business? And she says, well, I have about $350,000. And the $350,000, I want to say $50,000 for working capital. And I want to make more than what I'm making now in banking. And she was making about $125,000 a year after being in banking for over 30 plus years. So again, she was about 3 years away from retirement. So her why has to be so strong, so powerful to keep her in the game, because if it's not, guess what she's going to do? She's going to listen to all the naysayers. She's going to listen to all the people who tell her you shouldn't buy a business. What are you, crazy? You're 3 years away from retirement. You got great benefits. You're making $130,000 a year, and you're going to risk all of that? So her why was so powerful to keep her in the game. I ended up finding her a flooring company that would agree to sell her finance to her with $300,000 down. So she kept her $50,000 for working capital. It included the real estate. So she bought a business plus real estate for only $300,000 down. And she's making, after all debt service, in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. So she pulled the trigger. I held her hand every step of the way. But first-time buyers, if you're looking to exit your business or sell a business, you have to know what buyer is right for your business and what buyer is going to pull the trigger and what buyer is going to purchase your business. So if you've listened to my first podcast on the Seiler Tucker GPS exit model, where I teach you how to plan your exit and how to build your business so it's actually sellable. So now we're talking about the 5 types of buyers you may or may not want to sell your business to. So first-time buyers will buy coffee shops, restaurants, dry cleaners, laundromats, gift stores. She bought a carpet company. I was able to help her get into that business. She was able to use her retirement funds and redirect it into purchasing business without paying taxes and penalties. So that's a good way for first-time buyers to be able to come up with money. So if you're selling your business or exiting your business and you don't want to sell or finance, then first-time buyer might not be right for you. The next type of buyer is the sophisticated buyer. Sophisticated buyers buy all kinds of different things. I have different sophisticated buyers I work with that have trucking companies and hospitals and construction and just all kinds of different things. These are serial entrepreneurs. They are industry agnostic. They pull the trigger pretty quickly, unlike first-time buyers. Some first-time buyers will take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years looking at businesses, whereas sophisticated will make a decision really quickly. They know what they want to pay, and either the seller will agree to their terms or they won't. So sophisticated are great buyers. They typically come to M&A advisors. Why? Because M&A advisors have the best businesses on the market. Most business owners are going to hire an advisor to sell their business versus trying to sell on their own. So sophisticated is a great buyer if you're planning an exit. Again, they'll pull the trigger quickly, and they're all different. Most of them are industry agnostic. Most of them have different EBITDA requirements. So now let's talk about competitive and strategic buyers. These are great buyers because competitors and strategics buy synergies. And when you can find a buyer that's going to buy synergies, then they're willing to pay more. They're willing to pay a higher multiple. So that's when an advisor like myself comes in and looks at the business as a whole and see if that business is operating in all 6 Ps, the Seiler Tucker 6 Ps, because if it is, I know what buyers are willing to pay for people. People is your team, your management team, your employees. Or I might know which buyer is willing to pay for proprietary, which could be contracts, databases, trademarks, patents. Okay, so competitive and strategics are looking at businesses with synergies, whether it's a talent team, whether it's a contract, whether it's something that can catapult their business to the next level. These buyers will pay more and they will outbid other types of buyers. Let me give you a perfect example. We had an oil field service business that we were selling. They had a few patents, and we had probably 550 buyers for that particular business. We have found a strategic that had a similar product but different. Our company had 60% of their revenue tied up in BP. Now that would scare most buyers. Most buyers would be like, oh my gosh, if you lose BP, you lose 60% of your revenues. 60%. That could put you out of business. But this company wasn't afraid of that because this particular company was trying to get their products and services into BP for decades and never could. Buying this business was a strategic buy because they were buying that contract, which was synergistic, and they knew they could ROI and monetize with their other products and services. So that's why it's so imperative to know your strengths, know your Ps, so that you can package your business correctly and build it to meet that strategic or that competitor's buying criteria. And that's what we do for our clients. So the next type of buyer is PEGs. I call these private equity groups. And private equity groups buy different ways. They buy really basically two ways. They buy based on platforms or add-ons. So let's say a private equity group wants to get into the manufacturing industry, and they're not currently in the manufacturing industry. They will look for businesses with an EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, over $3 million. They typically will never buy a platform under $3 million in EBITDA. So they also look at add-ons. Let's say that they're already in the food manufacturing business and there's a hot sauce company for sale. And that hot sauce company's EBITDA is $700,000. They will look at that hot sauce company because it's an add-on to their existing platform. So platforms have to be $3 million up in EBITDA. Add-ons can be less. PEGs are great. They're quick to pull the trigger. Just to recap, first-time buyers are slow to pull the trigger. Sophisticators are quick. Strategics and competitors are typically very quick, and a lot of times they'll create a bidding war. Private equity groups look at a lot of deals per year, so they're very selective. They're pretty quick to pull the trigger, but they do look at a lot of businesses, so there's a lot of competition that you would be up against. And then let's talk about the last type of buyer, turnaround specialists. So turnaround specialists buy businesses that are underperforming. They're buying underperforming assets. Why? Because they have the core competencies, the skill sets, the resources, the experience to take these businesses and flip them and sell them for a profit. So turnaround specialists will buy businesses very cheap, sometimes no money down. They'll leverage the assets and they'll turn that business around. So you need to look at your business and ask yourself, what type of buyer is right for my business? What type of buyer? Is it first time? Are you in a coffee shop industry? Do you have a coffee shop, laundromat, dry cleaners? Or do you have a manufacturing business? If you have a manufacturing business, then you're probably going to appeal to the strategics, the competitors, and the PEGs. If you have a manufacturing business that's not doing well, then a turnaround specialist might be interested in your company. So again, go look at your business and make sure you listen to my podcast where I talk about planning your exit and building your business to meet your specific buyer's criteria. So if you want to sell a $20 million manufacturing company, who buys those? Strategics, competitors, PEGs. What does the revenue have to be? What does the EBITDA have to be? What's the management team, etc., have to be for that buyer to pull their trigger and buy that $20 million company? So these are the 5 types of buyers. I look forward to talking to you next time on Find Your Exit podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Find Your Exit podcast. Don't forget to check out Michelle Seiler Tucker's Build to Sell Blueprint books and Exit Rich, along with more blogs, videos, and resources at findyourexit.org. Be sure to connect with Michelle on Facebook or LinkedIn and stay tuned for her next episode by subscribing in your favorite podcast player.